I've even, where we live now, the community is about, I want to say 90 to 95% Hispanic. And at this point, it's like, I would have to say like 70 to 80% Dominican, which is
Okay.
what I am. So growing up, I never really felt like I was at a place, the schools that I went to, primarily Hispanic, we all came from big families. In the holidays, you always got together with a bunch of people, you ate similar food, things like that. So it wasn't for me until college really that I started like kind of like looking at myself as like I'm Dominican, that there's other ethnicities outside of, Dominican people. And it was definitely an eye opener just in the way that you interacted, the way that you went to parties, where like with us, you go to a party and there's dancing, there's music, specifically, the college that I went to was primarily white. So you don't necessarily do much dancing, you do more drinking and more like games and things like that.
Yeah.
But there's one moment that like stands out to me and still today where like I became an RA and I think this was second or third year in. This guy and I got paired together to do some type of study hall orientation, kind of greeting people as they're coming in. And he was black. He's passed away now, and myself, and I didn't even give it a second thought. But we were walking, doing our rounds, and in one he kind of mentioned like, "So what do you think they paired us together?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like it didn't even cross my mind, but to him it was very apparent, or at least in his mind, that the reason why they paired us together was because we were the two minorities in the entire group, and that's why they put us together, and partnered us up. And we had a bit of a conversation, but for me, I was either naive or I just didn't see the world in the way that he did. So it was very different. Like I had one perspective, and he had a completely different perspective of the world.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. And I guess growing up, again, the way that I was raised, my parents were not very into like defining who we are. So there wasn't, you're Puerto Rican, you should be aligning with Puerto Ricans. You're Creole, you should be aligning with Creole. You have French and you align that way. So we were very open to kind of everyone. So growing up, I will say the Latinos that I grew up with in elementary, middle, and high school were mostly Mexican. And as a kid, I didn't know really the difference because I wasn't really raised to learn the difference. And so my interactions with being a mixed child, I never really aligned with any group. I kind of was on my own. I would say I was a social person and pretty popular at school, but I didn't really align with people just based off of race. I didn't kind of go to always hang out with anyone. So I really just kind of formed my own friends and kind of had just this melting pot of a lot of different people. And I think the one cool thing was that it forced me to like people based off of their personalities and not necessarily just because we have similarities when it comes to our backgrounds and our families. So it was just kind of interesting, but you made a point about going to college, and I went to Indiana State, which is a very small town city in Indiana. And I remember being in my freshman year and somebody walking up to me and saying that I was the first colored person they ever saw in person. So it was just kind of a very, very different type of conversation and
How do
different
you
kind of
think
school.
that?
Yeah, that I don't even know how I responded kind of looking back at it, but I remember that very specifically because first off, it's amazing to me that somebody would be 18, 19 years old and never have met somebody of any type of other race than white, right? That just seems kind of odd to me, besides seeing it on TV. There's such a large world out there. And for some people, I think it was kind of eye-opening that, okay, this is part of the world we live in, that there are some people that don't have exposure to other races. And the other thing that I thought was interesting in school, I took sociology, and they were trying to talk about stereotypes, and they had a lot of different races up, and then they put different types of terminology that you had to kind of align with, right? What is the stereotype of black? And they had a lot of different words, and Puerto Rican, and Mexican and all these different things. And they had similar type of a thing. They teamed me up with a black lady, and we were chosen together to answer for our race, which seemed very weird in a class full of white people, to answer and say, which one is for you? And it's like, wait, none of these should be for me, right? I mean, that was kind of my perspective. It just seemed very odd. And I didn't even get it right. So, but yeah, it's just funny how the world works around you, and your perspective is always going to be different than everyone else's, right? You and your family and the way that you're raised, you'll always have and that's the cool part about meeting other people. You know, you can meet somebody that is successful in the same job, same opportunity as you, but you just have different perspectives on everything, right? Mm-hmm. And coming together, you guys can make something beautiful together with the different types of conversations you have and the way that you can open your eyes to new things.
Right.